Ibn Mas'ud, Ubay ibn Ka'ab, Ibn Sumayfa, and Asib al-Jahdi have recited the ayah differently, in which they have recited it, Shuhada'ullah, the witnesses of Allah, bear witness that there's no God but Allah. But others have recited it, Shahidallah. When it says that, the expression firmly establishing justice, qa'iman bil qist, firmly establishing justice, meaning true justice, absolute justice. Ja'far as-Sadiq has said, Allah only repeated the expression, there is no God but Him, because He firstly described Himself and His oneness. Then secondly, after He described Himself and His oneness, He taught others about how they should glorify Him by saying there is no God but Him. And this is the statement of Ja'far as-Sadiq. Now further to this, Allah the Exalted has said, إِنَّ الدِّينَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الْإِسْلَامِ وَمَا اخْتَلَفَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. Indeed, the religion in the sight of Allah is Al-Islam. And those who were given the book did not differ except after there came to them clear knowledge, in which hatred and rancor persisted among them. Whoever disbelieves in the signs of Allah, then indeed Allah is swift in bringing to account. Surah Al Imran, the 3rd Surah, ayat 19. The religion in the sight of Allah is Al-Islam. The vast majority of the reciters say that it is to be recited in just this way. And this is according to the recitation of Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Abbas, Abu Rizin, Abu Al-Aliya, Qatada ibn Da'ima. Abu Sulaiman al-Dimashqi has said, when the Jews claimed that there is no religion better than Judaism, and the Christians claimed that there is no religion better than Christianity, this ayah was sent down. As Zujaj said, the deen is the name of all of what you worship Allah with as His creation. He orders them to establish this religion and that it is their mainstay, and He will reward them because of what they did. Our Sheikh Ali ibn Ubaidullah, he said that the deen is how the slave has been commanded by Allah to worship Him. Qatada has said that Islam is inside of the expression silm. And silm means submission and following to that which has been given. And this is why its ultimate root is al-istislam. It is said, such and such has submitted to the order. Istaslama or aslama when someone's become Muslim. Such and such has become Muslim. Aslama. Now, regarding those who were given the book, there are 3 statements regarding those who were given the book. Firstly, it was referring to the Jews, as said by Al-Rabi'. And secondly, it's referring to the Christians, as said by Muhammad ibn Ja'far ibn al-Zubayr. And it's both of them together, because they are the people that have received the book. Now, you should understand that sometimes the expression kitab, book, in Arabic can be referring to kutub, the plural of books. And that's what it's referring to, because the Jews and Christians did not get just one book, but they received books. Now, those who differed in the affair, there are four things that they differed about. There are four things that they differed about. One is their religion, which they differed in. Secondly, what to believe about Isa. What they were going to believe about Isa. Thirdly, the deen of Al-Islam and the fact that they knew that it was correct. Fourthly, the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that they knew his description had been given. Close quote. Now all this is significant then. Whatever they differed in is all of these things. One is their deen. Because if you look at their deen, Jews and Christians, both are going back to Bani Israel. Because the people that followed the Prophet Isa alayhi salam are coming from what? They're coming from the children of Israel. They listened to the message. There were 12 of them. They're differing in the issue of the Prophet Isa alayhi salam. Why? Because when you speak to a proper representative of Judaism, a proper representative, not people that are watered down in the sludge of interfaith and all these other things, people that will tell you the position, they will state to you very clearly that the Prophet Isa alayhi salam, in their belief, was a false prophet, and he was killed as a false prophet, and he was the son of a harlot, which is a whore. That is the default position in ultra-Orthodox Judaism. That is the position. When you speak to the Christian, again, this is both of them, the people of the book, they will say the Prophet Isa alayhi salam is the everlasting living Son of God, and that he is the second person in the Trinity. So they differ in the religion regarding the Prophet Isa alayhi salam. They differ in the deen of Islam because they know its truth. People, if they study, will know that around the year 970 AD of their calendar, that Hebrew fell out of use as a consistent national language. And to try to keep it alive and revive it, what did they do? They referred to the Arabic dictionaries. They referred to the Arabic lexicons. If you find Jewish commentators on the Shulchan Aruch, the spread table, today, this is the majority of Jewish fiqh. If you discuss with them today and they get stumped on a word in Hebrew and they're not sure what it is, they go to the Arabic dictionaries. How many of these rabbis have Tajul Urus in their library? How many of them have Lisan al-Arab? Go down to Temple Dervish Sinai. Go down to Stanford Hill. Go down to Golders Green. Go to Melbourne and go in there and say, I just want to look at your library and look at what books you have on offer and get a better understanding of Judaism. And Lisan al-Arab is there. Remember, Lisan al-Arab gets translated into Hebrew. Tajul Urus is translated into Hebrew. Why? What are these books being translated into Hebrew? Why? Because Arabic's older. And it's pure because Hebrew fell out of use. So they know what Islam is about. If it wasn't true, they wouldn't have any need to use these books. And then fourthly, you have the description of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With Christians, it's an issue that you often will have to bring their religious scholars or their texts, and they don't know a lot of these things are in there. When Coptic Christians come and they have in Arabic the book of John, Yohanna, and they say, I'm going to give you a book, I want you to take it. It's the Safir Yohanna, the Gospel of Yohanna. I want you to take this. Okay, I'll take it. And you flip open the first pages and you say, now just read this passage for me. And they read through it and they say, when the Prophet Ilyas alayhi salam, they refer to the Prophet Isa and the Prophet Yahya alayhi salam firstly. And when they come to the Prophet Yahya alayhi salam, supposedly the Jewish rabbis are supposed to have said to him, are you the Prophet Ilyas alayhi salam that's come again? He said, no. And they said to him, are you HaMushiach? Are you the Messiah? And he said, no. And they said, are you ذَلِكَ النَّبِيَّ الْمُنْتَظَرُ? Are you that prophet that's awaited? To which he said, no. Now, you could hardly be a Jew from first century Sham and not have this in your theology unless you were asking this question to get to the bottom of it. They would not have asked that question unless that was within their theology, that there were three distinct offices. The Prophet Ilyas alayhi salam, the office of Moshiach or Messiah, and the office of that particular prophet. When you consult the Jewish encyclopedia and you look under Muhammad, they have no dispute that he's a prophet. When you look in the Jewish encyclopedia, the 1901 edition, there's 8 pages about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're not disputing that he's a prophet. The dispute is he a prophet for the children of Israel? Sure, he's a prophet to the Arabs. He's a prophet to everyone else. But we don't need any. We don't need any. We're all stocked up. We're profited out. We don't need any. That's the dispute with the one from children of Israel, with the Jews from the children of Israel. With the Christian, it's the dispute because they're saying, well, he's fundamentally denying the Prophet Isa alayhi salam, and how can there be other prophets to come after? Because when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in the hadith in Bukhari, in the Sahih of Imam Bukhari, between myself and Isa there was no prophet. So this is obviously going to say anyone claiming prophethood after the Prophet Isa alayhi salam is a false prophet. Now, who were some of the major figures in the early Christianity? They would have to be false prophets, because there was no prophet for 600 years between Isa and him. And this is the issue. So the issue of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a sword that cuts both ways for the Jew who says he's got nothing to do with us, even though their rabbis met him and said he has everything to do with us, and between the Christian who says, well, we don't accept him because he denies Christ, yet all the other principles are there in place. What do they do with their book? And these are the 4 main issues where there's massive difference. So for us to understand this, when we go out into the world and we speak to people who happen to be Christians or people who happen to be Jews, that should be foremost in the back of your mind. It should not be in the back of your mind thinking, now how do I celebrate the differences and glory in the similarity? That's not what's first in your mind. What's first in your mind is, how do I try to get him to understand why there's this barrier between us? And then from there, you can get talking. With the children of Israel, they will give you the proofs. They'll show you that he's mentioned. Yes, he's mentioned in the Talmud. He's mentioned in some of our texts. Yeah, they will show you the texts. They don't have a dispute with that. Many of the Orthodox rabbis will show you their book. Rabbi Klonigsberg showed me, yes, we know that he's a prophet. We know that. We're not disputing that. We have Qur'ans in our library. We have many Arabic books in our library. We're not disputing that. The question is he a prophet for Bani Ishmael or a prophet for everyone like he says he is? That's the issue. Imam Ibn Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he then says, quote, and when the Exalted One says, they did not differ except after certain knowledge came to them, what that is referring to is the clarification of what they differed in. And what they differed in caused harm and caused them to dispute with one another. And when they differed and disputed with one another, it was not to try to learn evidence or find the truth. It was disputation. And so the Exalted One says, فَإِنْ حَاجُّوكَ فَقُلْ أَسْلَمْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّهِ وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِ وَقُلْ لِلَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ وَالْأُمِّيِّينَ أَأَسْلَمْتُمْ فَإِنْ أَسْلَمُوا فَقَدِ اهْتَدَوْا وَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ وَاللَّهُ بَصِيرٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. And if they should come to dispute with you, say, I've submitted my whole self to Allah, and whoever should follow me after does the same. And say to those who were given the book and those who are illiterate, will you submit? If they submit, then they've already been guided. And if they turn away, then you are only to convey the message. Allah sees all that the slaves do. Surah Al Imran, the 3rd Surah, ayat 20. If they dispute with you, meaning if they argue with you, and they seek to find fault with you, meaning the Jews, And Ibn Jarir al-Tabari says the Christians of Najran also are indicated because they were coming to dispute about the issue of Isa. You should say, I've submitted my whole self to Allah, meaning that I have made all of my actions and all of what I do for Allah, and I've intended all of my worship for Allah. And whoever should follow me does the same. So they love following that which that prophet has come with. Close quote. Now there's just a very important point. You need to remember when this ayah, when Surah Al Imran was revealed, okay, it was an important event. And here's why. The Prophet ﷺ, he comes to Medina. When he stops off at Quba and then he comes to Medina, there is a huge procession of people that are waiting, looking on. A selection of rabbis from the children of Israel. The people of Yathrib, which later became Medina itself. And a delegation of the Christians of Najran come. Who were these Christians of Najran? Well, a lot of them were people who had followed the Prophet Isa alayhi salam, or people who had followed those who followed Isa, a small community that escaped into interior Arabia. So these are people that are coming from the source. The rabbis came in a delegation, and among them was Hussein bin Shalom, who became Abdullah ibn Salam, radiallahu anhu. He came in a delegation of rabbis. So here you have a delegation of rabbis, the first ones to come and sit down with him and ask him a number of questions. Everything from the end of the world. Why does a child sometimes resemble its mother rather than its father, or the other way around? And why? They asked numerous questions. When the Christians came, they asked him numerous questions and were answered. And so these ayat are the response that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to both of them. And it cut them, as I mentioned before, it cut them both ways. Because when he was speaking to the rabbis, he said, we accept all of the prophets. And that Isa is Al-Masih, that Isa is Hamushiach, he's the Messiah. That immediately blows everything with the children of Israel. This man has said that Isa is the Messiah. Why? Because the Jews are not believing in a Messiah that is to come again. They are believing in a Messiah that is yet to come. Hamushiach, Al-Mushiach bin David, the Messiah, son of David. That is what they're looking at. The Muslim and the Christian are believing in a Messiah that is to come again. Now, the Christians get cut because the Muslim believes in a Messiah that is human, that is not unearthly or supernatural, but he's been endowed with supernatural gifts and miracles and will rule as a king. So this cuts the Christian because they believe he rules as a king because he is deity. So you can see in the discussion that a Muslim will have with a Jew or a Christian, there's really no middle area because you're in trouble either way. And eventually what happens is the Jew and the Christian start to converge and they home in on you because you're totally different to their theology. And when they find more in common with each other than with you, you've heard what's been said on the television. We need to talk about our common Judeo-Christian culture. The Islamo is not mentioned in there, nothing of that sort, because they see it as something alien, because they know it's different to their religion. And that's what the Imam is putting across us so that we understand the backdrop of these ayat. It's not that, so when you're speaking to a Jew or Christian here, they're saying, well, why didn't anyone come? No, listen. Your main scholars back then, there was no Protestant Revolution, there were no Anglicans, there were no Baptists, there were no Foursquare Pentecostals, there were no Oneness Pentecostals. It didn't exist. There was one general unified church. And the heads of that church, the patriarchs of that church, the men just down from what we're calling the Pope, came to see the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and ask him questions. There was no conservative Judaism. There was no Reform Judaism. There was one Judaism, Rabbinic Judaism. And they sent their delegation and he explained to them. So the dispute that people are having now is coming after history and trying to interpret history through modern methods. But that's not how you understand history. By putting things back into history, you understand history by studying it as it occurred from the people who were there during that time. That's how you study history.